Thank you all. You may be seated. Good morning and welcome to the first day of 8th grade declamations, COVID edition. So I do ask that you please remember to silence your cell phones. Those of you who have permission may video your friends. If you did not get permission, please do not do so. I do ask for your undivided attention. Those of you who have declaimed before know the amount of work and preparation that these students have put in for today. And you are also continued to be tied to a 151-year-old legacy. And welcome parents and visitors. Today we have 6 declaimers: Abigail Voorhees Fontenot from Shelbyville, Tennessee, Hayden Werner from Shelbyville, Tennessee, Thomas Whitaker from Shelbyville, Tennessee, Grace Wilhelm from Shelbyville, Tennessee, Kate Yasui from Murfreesboro, Tennessee, and Usman Zafar from Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Abigail?
Sorry is a simple way to apologize for a variety of mistakes, but sometimes you can repent in a much more memorable way. Anne of Green Gables by Lucy Maud Montgomery is a novel about a young orphan girl, Anne, who has recently been adopted. Anne has a very vivid imagination and is very outspoken. The following passage takes place after Anne loses her temper with Miss Rachel Lynn. Anne must apologize. Her apology is like no other. "I suppose I could do it to oblige you," said Anne thoughtfully. "It would be true enough to say I am sorry, because I am sorry now. I wasn't a bit sorry last night. I was mad clear through, and I stayed mad all night. But this morning, it was all over. I wasn't in a temper anymore. I felt so ashamed of myself, but I just couldn't think of going and telling Lynn so. It would be so humiliating. I made up my mind I'd stay shut up here forever, rather than do that. But still, I'd do anything for you. You really want me to." "Well, now of course I do. It's terrible lonesome downstairs without you." "Very well," said Anne resignedly. Marilla herself, upon her return to the house, was agreeably surprised to hear a plaintive voice calling, "Marilla," over the banisters. "I'm sorry I lost my temper and said rude things, and I'm willing to go and tell Miss Lynn so." "Very well." Marilla's crispness gave no sign of her relief. "I'll take you down after milking." This was satisfactory, or should have been so, but Marilla could not rid herself of the notion that something in her scheme of punishment was going askew. Anne had no business looking so rapt and radiant. "Oh, Miss Lynn, I am so extremely sorry," she said with a quiver in her voice. "I could never express all my sorrow. No, not if I used up a whole dictionary. You must just imagine it. I behaved terribly to you, and I've disgraced the dear friends Matthew and Marilla who've let me stay at Green Gables, although I'm not a boy. I'm a dreadfully wicked and ungrateful girl, and I deserve to be punished and cast out by respectable people forever. It was very wicked of me to fly into a temper because you told me the truth. It was the truth. Every word you said was true. My hair is red, and I'm freckled and skinny and ugly. What I said to you was true, too, but I shouldn't have said it. Oh, Miss Lynn, please, please forgive me. If you refuse, it will be a lifelong sorrow to me. You wouldn't inflict a lifelong sorrow on a poor little orphan girl, would you? Even if she had a dreadful temper? Oh, I'm sure you wouldn't. Please say you forgive me, Miss Lynn." Anne clasped her hands together, bowed her head, and waited for the word of judgment.
Our oceans make up more than 70% of the surface of our planet, and billions of creatures live in it, and millions die, not to natural causes, but because of us. We dump millions of tons of plastic into our oceans for animals to eat, which can cause death. This speech was delivered by President Foyer of Seychelles on April 14th, 2019. From 124 meters below the ocean surface, it is a privilege to address you, citizens of the world, from the big blue heart of our planet. From this depth, I can not only see the incredible beauty of our oceans, but the care that urgently needs to stay this way. 2/3 of our ocean is blue. It is the world's largest ecosystem, which generates half the oxygen we breathe and 30% of the carbon dioxide and absorbs 30% of carbon dioxide in our atmosphere. Our ocean is huge. It covers more than 70% of our planet, but we have still managed to seriously impact the vast environment through climate change, ocean acidification, overfishing, plastic, and other pollutions and other threats. From this depth, I can see the wildlife that needs our protection and the consequences of seriously damaging a huge ecosystem that's existed for over a millennia. Over the years, we have created these problems. We can solve them. We can solve them together. We must solve them, and we must solve them together. We need decisive, coordinated international action. We need concrete steps from expanding marine protected areas to sustainable fishery management, from reducing pollution to preventing plastic from entering our oceans. We're the guardians of two-thirds of this blue planet surface. We must act accordingly. This issue is bigger than all of us. We cannot wait for the next generation to solve it. We're running out of excuses not to take action and running out of time.
The Boy in the Striped Pajamas by John Bowen is about a boy named Bruno that moves away from his hometown Berlin and goes to Outwith. Behind Bruno's new home is a big fence. Bruno goes to sit with a boy on the other side of the fence. This passage is where the boy named Shmuel has the answer to Bruno's question. All I know is this, began Shmuel. Before we came here, I lived with my mother and father and my brother Joseph in a small flat above the shop where Papa makes his watches. Every morning we ate our breakfast at 7 o'clock, and while we went to school, Papa mended the watches that people brought to him and made new ones too. I had a beautiful watch that he gave me, but I don't have it anymore. It had a golden face, and I wound it up every night before I went to sleep, and it always told the right time. What happened to it? Asked Bruno. They took it, said Shmuel. Who? The soldiers, of course, as if this was the most obvious thing in the world. And then one day, things started to change. One day, when we came home from school, our mother was making armbands for us from special cloth and drawing a star on each one of them. Like this. Using his finger, he drew a star in the dusty ground beneath him. My father wears one too, on his uniform. It's very nice, said Bruno. It's bright red with a black and white design on it. Like this. Using his finger, he drew another design in the dusty ground on his side of the fence. Yes, but they're different, aren't they, said Shmuel? I think I'd quite like to wear one, said Bruno. But I never asked to wear one, said Shmuel. Anyhow, said Bruno, I don't know which one I would prefer, though. Your one or Father's? Shmuel shook his head and continued with his story. He didn't often think about these things much because remembering his life above the watch shop made him very sad.
Have you ever wondered if everything is just a dream? If all you're going through is just happening inside your head? In the novel Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, Harry experiences the same thing. When he resides in a heavenly place with Dumbledore, the man who always looked after him, Harry is very unsure of what is and isn't happening inside his head. In the following passage, Harry speaks to Dumbledore about his life-changing decision to either stay with him or continue his life on Earth. The creature behind them jerked and moaned, and Harry and Dumbledore sat without talking for the longest time yet. The realization of what would happen next settled gradually over Harry, and the long minutes like softly falling snow. I've got to go back, haven't I? That's up to you. I've got a choice? Oh, yes. Dumbledore smiled at him. We are in King's Cross, you say, and I think that if you decided not to return, you would be able to, let's say, board a train. And where would it take me? On, said Dumbledore simply. Silence again. Voldemort's got the other wand. True, Voldemort has the other one. But you want me to go back? I think, said Dumbledore, that if you choose to return, he may be finished for good. I cannot promise it.
But I know this, Harry, that you have less to fear from returning here than he does." Harry glanced again at the rollicking thing that trembled and choked in the shadow beneath the distant chair. "Do not pity the dead, Harry. Pity the living, and, above all, those who live without love. By returning, you may ensure that fewer souls are maimed, fewer families are torn apart. If that seems to you a worthy goal, then we say goodbye for the present." Harry nodded and sighed. Leaving this place would not be nearly as hard as walking into the forest had been, but it was warm and light and peaceful here, and he knew that he was headed back into pain and fear of more loss. He stood up, and Dumbledore did the same, and for a long moment they stared into each other's faces. "Tell me one last thing," said Harry. "Is this real, or has this all been happening inside my head?" Dumbledore beamed at him. His voice sounded loud and strong in Harry's ears, even though the bright mist descended, obscuring his figure. "Of course it's happening inside your head, Harry, but why on earth should that mean it's not real?"
Blood, sweat, tears, hardships, and loss. These are all challenges we face in life. Throughout history, people of color have been treated poorly for their skin. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was an advocate to fight to make their lives equal. He was a man of God and spread the word of peace and the word of equality. In 1964, he received a Nobel Peace Prize and struck the hearts of many with his words. "Your Majesty, Your Royal Highness, Mr. President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I accept the Nobel Prize for Peace at a moment when 22 million blacks of the United States of America are engaged in a creative battle to end the long night of racial injustice. I accept this award on behalf of a movement that is moving with determination and majestic scorn for risk and danger to establish a reign of freedom and justice. I am mindful that only yesterday in Birmingham, Alabama, our children crying out for brotherhood were greeted with snarling dogs, fire hoses, snarling dogs, and even death. I am mindful that only yesterday in Philadelphia and Mississippi, young people seeking to secure the right to vote were brutalized or murdered. And I am mindful that only yesterday, more than 40 houses of worship in the state of Mississippi alone were bombed or burned because they offered sanctuary to those who would not accept segregation. And I am mindful that the debilitating and grinding poverty afflicts my people and chains them to the lowest rung of the economic ladder. Therefore, I must ask, why this prize is awarded to a movement which has not yet won the very peace or brotherhood that is the essence of the Nobel Prize. Therefore, I must ask why this prize is awarded to a movement which is belligerent and committed to unrelenting struggle, a movement which has not yet won the very peace or brotherhood that is the essence of the Nobel Prize. After contemplation, I conclude that this award which I receive on behalf of that movement is a profound recognition that nonviolence is the answer to the crucial political and moral question of our time, the need for man to overcome oppression and violence without resorting to violence and oppression. Civilization and violence are antithetical concepts. Blacks of the United States of America, following the people of India, have demonstrated that nonviolence is not sterile passivity, but a powerful moral force which makes for social transformation. Sooner or later, all the people of the world will have to discover a way to live together in peace, and thereby transform the pending cosmic energy and create a creative psalm of brotherhood. If this is to be achieved, man must evolve for all human conflict a method that rejects revenge, aggression, and retaliation. The foundation for such method is love.
The book Holes by Louis Carr is a book about a young boy named Stanley who has been wrongfully accused for stealing shoes from a famous baseball player. To pay for his actions, he is sent to a camp where they dig holes because supposedly digging holes builds character, but in reality they are digging to find something. This excerpt from the novel describes Camp Green Lake. There is no lake at Camp Green Lake. There was once a very large lake here, the largest in all of Texas, but that was over 100 years ago. Now it's just a dry, flat wasteland. There used to be a town of Green Lake as well. The town shriveled and dried up, along with the lake and the people who lived there. During the summertime in the daytime, the temperature hovers around 95 degrees in the shade, if you can find any shade. There's not much shade in a big dry lake. The only trees are 2 big oaks on the eastern side of the lake. A hammock is stretched out between the 2 trees. A log cabin stands behind that. The campers are forbidden to lie in the hammock. It belongs to the warden. The warden owns the shade. Out on the lake, rattlesnakes and scorpions find shade under rocks and in holes dug by the campers. Here's a good rule to remember about rattlesnakes and scorpions. If you don't bother them, they won't bother you, usually. Being bitten by a rattlesnake or a scorpion is not even the worst thing that can happen to you. You won't die, usually. Sometimes a camper will try to get bitten by a scorpion or even a small rattlesnake so he can spend a day or 2 out in his tent instead of digging a hole in the lake. But you don't want to be bitten by a yellow-spotted lizard. That's the worst thing that can happen to you. You will die a slow and painful death, always. If you get bitten by a yellow-spotted lizard, you might as well go into the shade of the oak trees, because there's nothing anyone can do to you anymore. Now the reader might be wondering, why would anyone go to Camp Green Lake? Most campers weren't given a choice. Camp Green Lake is a camp for bad boys. If you take a bad boy and make him dig a hole in the hot sun every day, it will turn him into a good boy. That's what some people thought. Stanley Yelnats was given a choice. The judge asked, you may go to jail or you may go to Camp Green Lake. Stanley was from a poor family. He had never been to camp before.
So I'm taking my mask down so you can see how big I'm smiling. I'm extremely proud of you all. That is the way to do it. Well done. Because it's the COVID edition, keep your masks up, but all step to the center of the stage so that your parents can get a mask picture, and then after we dismiss, parents can get individual pictures without your masks outside. So go ahead and take center stage for us. It's harder to hear that sigh of relief with these masks on. Usually I can hear them go, Okay, I think all the cameras are down. Great job. I say it every year, and it holds true every year, every week of declamations, that the students will sleep better tonight. So I have just a few announcements. 7th grade Feet to Feet starts today. That takes place during your rotations of either PE or others. And if you want to participate, let me know, and Trace Snell will send me a roster. If you do not want to participate in Feet to Feet, go on to your regular rotations. I need to see Joelle and Thomas for just a minute after seminar. You are not in trouble. And are there other faculty announcements? Ms. Wyndham?
I just need Jory and Mariana to stay in here after we're dismissed.
Okay. Mr. Mitchell?
I need to see Andrew Reeves.
Okay. Any others? And Macy, Simon, I think we're going to practice your declamation? Yeah. Okay. Parents and grandparents, thank you so much for coming. Super proud of your children today. And I hope you all stay well.